In terms of, before we kick off, just a kind of a quick intro into who we are. So my name's Elaine. I've been 8 years in the recruitment business, for the last 4 years at Google. I am based in London, but I do recruit all across EMEA, and I'm currently leading the EMEA recruitment for what we call global product partnerships and hardware partnerships, so mainly non-technical roles. I'll pass it over to Pete.
Yes, hello everyone. I'm Peter. I've been in the recruitment world, I suppose, for about 7, 8 years now as well, and been with Google for the last 2 years. So I typically would recruit into just the safety area, but I'm pivoting slightly into the engineering work at the moment. But just the safety being the areas that just really focused on keeping the internet safe for all users, really.
So Peter, I'm just going to say you're a bit garbly. I'm going to stick with it and hope that we get better. Your internet connection was flaky the other day, so hopefully we can get there. You're just
Okay.
Oh. Great. So here's a quick look at kind of the agenda. What we'll cover is, really looking at why candidate experience matters. We'll go through the basics, what do candidates actually want when they say for good experience? And then we'll go into a bit more detail about how Google track and measure and train and communicate. So I'll kick us off. Okay, why does candidate experience matter? At Google, we are a very data-driven company. Before we're doing anything, we always make sure that we have the evidence and research to back it up. We did a global study in 2018 for all role types, both technical and non-technical. And so there's a lot of key takeaways. I know it will be Google specific, but it was a really large subset of all different various role types and kind of backgrounds. So we're hoping that key takeaways will be relevant for all different companies and industries. So what did this study show us? So the study showed us that 52% of 2018 hires were previously rejected by Google. So basically the message there is today's rejected candidate is tomorrow's hire. That's why experience matters. There's also leads to higher acceptance rates. So those with a positive experience are 28% more likely to accept an offer. And then even more surprising, those with a positive experience are 48% more likely to accept an offer, even if they have a competing offer. Now, for Google, that's huge. I mean, we are a great company. We know that, but there are other great companies, and we are competing for top talent, just like everybody else. So if we can give an excellent candidate experience, that will lead to a higher acceptance rate. I said that's really, really important to us as well. So what else? Why else does candidate experience matter? It has definitely a huge impact on future pipelines. So, candidates who did not receive an offer, but they had a positive experience with Google, would say they're twice as likely to reapply. That's huge. Also, candidates with a positive experience are 3 times more likely to encourage their friends to apply to Google. Again, has a real positive impact on future pipelines. And then also a very important thing for us is, power of word of mouth. I think this is a kind of, universally accepted or, stat. Those with a good experience, they tell about 15 people. However, those with a bad experience tell more. They tell about 24 people. So failure to deliver a positive experience can result in candidates developing and spreading a negative view of the organization, both professionally and in their social networks, and that therefore discouraging other candidates to apply. And then brand perception. So research indicates that candidates are 38% less likely to use a product or a service as a result of a poor application or recruitment experience. Given the scope and breadth of Google's products and service offerings, this is huge. These are our users. We have 6 products with over 1 billion users. So if we're not providing a good experience to our applicants, that could affect our brand offering. And therefore, customer advocacy, loyalty is a huge consideration in how we design and execute our experience in hiring teams. And therefore, we know as recruiters, but also interviewers, we own that Google brand for candidates. So that's like a huge lot of data that we've used, and we rely a lot of our, I said, the design and execution of our processes. And therefore I can hand it over to Pete. Hopefully if the internet works. If not, I'm happy to take over, but we'll talk about the basics. What do candidates want?
The joys of working from home. So really, the basics around every interaction is really a moment to represent the brand. So for us, every interaction is a moment to represent that Google brand. And in this section, we're going to really focus on the importance of creating that wow experience, that wow factor for both not just candidates, but clients and referrers as well. You know, it's not just about having respect for candidates and for everyone through the process, but it's really looking at that empathy piece as well. So the way we look at the basics, what do candidates want? So timely communication, you hear it time and time again, you know, around this piece, and we really want to regularly update them on how they're progressing. So even if it's just one of those no update updates, and candidate experience can be made that much easier, that bit easier by giving the answer before that question comes through, having those expectations set, being able to preempt, okay, I've promised them by Friday that I'm going to get back to them. Let's not wait until end of the day Friday to share that no update. You know, get it across to them as soon as possible, as soon as you have that, and well, even if you don't have that update, but as soon as you have anything. And the information piece, you know, education and setting expectations for candidates. Really want to help candidates understand that Google hiring process by explaining it to them in quite plain language. You know, no internal jargon. Google is filled with internal phrases and such, and we really want to sort of get rid of those and just explain it in its simplest form. So fulfilling our commitments, simply put, and we do what we say. And I think that comes through a lot with building the trust. So we look at how we can help people come through. You know, we want to overshare as much as we can with information. If it's through interview prep documents and guides, setting up that 30-minute, 15-minute conversation prior to somebody interviewing, just making them, you know, aware of what to expect, being there for them, trying to help and educate. It's such a nerve-wracking time that any bit of help can be provided really just boosts that experience. And we also look at different things, external blogs. We use YouTube, fortunately, where we post around what it's like to come through the Google hiring process and how best to come through as well. And with all of that, it really does put the focus and the onus on the candidate. We want to give the candidate a chance to learn about Google, about the role. We want to match them to roles that are interest to them by understanding really what someone's career aspirations are. Something I always say to people as they come through as well is remember, this isn't just Google's opportunity to interview you. This is your opportunity to interview Google. It's not just about us and making sure that their candidate's right for Google. We want to make sure that Google's right for the person as well. So it's really important just to be able to push that through and give them the understanding and have that understanding from their side about what their professional situations are, their motivations, personal situations, especially at unfortunately what is a common part to the role, which is the rejections. You know, we want to help them identify where else maybe in Google their skills might be a fit, but also some pieces they can learn on. You know, we've all been in those situations where someone's just gone, sorry, there's no feedback, you've just been rejected. Really doesn't leave the best taste. And we want to make sure that, you know, really looking at keeping experience first mindset through the whole process. Every interaction we have with someone should leave them in a really positive impression, you know, be it candidates, be it referrers, whoever it may be. Experience is such a personal thing. It's not just about making sure that you share that no update, but it's really about how do you make the candidate feel at the end of the day after every single interaction. Are we leaving them with that positive feeling?
So there we go, we're back again.
Back to Going, yeah. So back through the basics, that end-to-end engagement. Now, I appreciate being in Google, sitting here, feeling perhaps coming from a position of privilege when we look at tech and such, and how we can utilize these things. But there's still different ways that we can do it when you don't have those such large resources. And tech as a tool can be such an interesting thing to do. Earlier this year, we looked at different ways and innovative ways to have people's applications come through. And for some roles, candidates did videos where they felt they could share more about their experience and their personalities and their skill sets. Just using that tech piece in a slightly different way. Not everyone enjoys putting through TV, so it's giving the option to allow people to express themselves through in different ways. And that careers page, can we make it so the careers page is easy to navigate and you can track your application? It's about not overcomplicating things that should be quite simple. There's nothing worse than having a very complicated, laborious careers page where you click on 8 different areas and you have application pages where you just can't track them. It's important that people creating applications can be done as easy as possible. People can go through and create tens into hundreds when they're trying to find a job, and it's about simplifying that part of the process as much as really possible. And then when we look at engaged teams, so we've gone through the end-to-end engagement side, and we want to look at the engaged team. So interviewers, the questions they were asked were high quality, were they relevant to the role, were they challenging but in a good way? Are we really sort of making people push themselves through their interviews? Were the interviewers engaged? There's nothing, there's again that experience side. If someone is sat there opposite you, you're interviewing, you're nervous, and someone just it doesn't really breed that engagement. It's about having that conversation, still being professional, making it easy to understand and bond with that person, putting them at ease. The coordinators. So if we look at engaged teams in Google, you can be working with upwards of 6 to 8 different partners through the recruitment process. And it's important that we look at how can we keep everyone engaged and moving in the same direction. So coordinators are also targeted with experience metrics, through SLA and how the candidates feel as they're coming through. And referrals are so important, especially again with us here in Google. We're not just driven by experience of candidates coming through, but we're also looking at the people that are referring them in. The better experience, as Elaine said earlier, they have using, and the better experience they have, using a very similar viewpoint, from timely communication to transparency, letting them know every time we get an update exactly what it is, the more likely they are to refer their friends through, and the brand grows within that. And then fairness and fair and trustworthy experiences. It's so important, especially in this day and age, that we're protecting candidate privacy. We earn candidates trust by protecting the information disclosed to us through the process. Something that they share, maybe they don't want to be shared with the hiring manager. They haven't explicitly said, but we should be taking those conversations straight away as confidential between us. So we only share something that is specifically relevant to the hiring decision makers. And we deliver a very fair and consistent experience between candidates. So we push our clients, so we push our hiring managers and such to really challenge their own biases and make sure the questions are thoughtful and relevant, and really focusing on understanding the skills and the abilities needed for a role. There was I can't remember for the life of me his name, but it's a really interesting video about culture add and not culture fit. Which is, you're not hiring somebody to go have a beer with down the pub, or if you're in an airport, would you have a beer with them in the airport? We're focusing on the relevant skill set for the position. And that is something that we're constantly looking at and pushing our interviewers to remove the biases of personal interaction, focusing on, is the candidate technically good enough to do this role? As a recruiter, a role, it really is at its core about relationships. You know, it's so focused. We're there as career advisors a lot of the time, but it's really about building these relationships. And some of the things that we look at to help create a strong rapport with both internal candidates and external candidates, because there's a lot of internal movement specifically in Google as well. And you need to be, just because somebody's already in Google and looking internally for another role, you still need to be treated with that experience hat on that we have, and leading with the impact of the candidates that will have on that team in Google. So again, we should be showing candidates we value them, highlight how they will impact Google in this role, really surprise them, delight them, give them that wow factor. Put yourself in the candidate's shoes. Empathy is just the biggest tool in an arsenal when it comes through here. It's so important. We've all been in that situation. Everyone knows how nerve-wracking it is when you're looking for a job, be you currently unemployed or even unemployed, which a lot of people are at the moment. So really just putting yourself in their shoes, displaying that empathy to really provide them with the best experience we can. And that comes through with providing updates and clarity. Be honest, be transparent, be forthright. If you're saying you're going to do something, do it. If you promise the update on a Friday, do share the update on a Friday, because may not be realised as important to you, but that person will be sat there looking at the emails, refreshing, looking at their phone, making sure it's charged. It's really important candidate experience. You just keep them updated and prioritise Google needs when advocating for your candidates as well. If you're saying, look at how they are for Google's needs in that sense, or be it another company's needs. Think about how this candidate's going to help your business as well as how your business will be helping the candidate. And so the next piece we're going to look at is actually tracking and measuring. So with the tracking and measuring piece, it cuts into three different areas for us. So data, SLAs, and it's really part of the DNA. So data, as again Elaine said, Google is a very data-driven company. We make all decisions around data. So surveys are sent out to all candidates who are interviewed. 2 weeks after their applications are closed, that's offered or rejected. Every single candidate will get one of these surveys. And we make sure to split the data we receive to get more granular understanding of our performance and how we can make improvements. So we look at experience for everyone involved in the hiring process, including those referring candidates in. And if someone's putting themselves out there to refer family or friends into a position, it's important that we keep them updated and make sure we're holding that experience at the highest possible level. So we look at our candidate experience in a few different ways. So we split by internal and external, and offer and no offer. And there's quantitative and qualitative sections in here as well. So there's always context behind what we're doing, and we're able to look into that context and understand, okay, this is where we went wrong. We can look at trends behind it, really push to better ourselves at every possible corner. With SLAs we have in place, we want to be ensured that we're contacting candidates in a timely manner. Everything is geared towards really a positive experience. We want to be trying to reach out to them within, let's imagine, 7 days of an application. Really just making sure that there's that timely communication piece that comes through. Google's interview process can take 3 to 4 months. It's a long time. So it's important that we're moving things through as fast as possible and being transparent about these areas. We really can only move as fast as that process allows. And while we can move a bit quicker on urgent candidates, if someone's got a competing offer or something, ultimately you cannot make hiring decisions in the day turnaround without missing out on key steps. That's why it's important for us to keep in mind as we set candidate expectations. And similarly, we set referral expectations, we set hiring manager expectations around timing and providing transparency. Yeah, it really is one of the keys to candidate experience there. Sorry. One of the keys to candidate experience is providing that transparency. And it's built into the DNA with us here at Google. We're measured across, as I said, multiple areas to better understand what we're doing and how we need to improve across the candidate life cycle. We can check our own personal results. What's more important here to consider is that, it's not just the end result. We're not just about getting the 08. It's about how we go about it. We want to aim for at least 9% of people coming through, offer or no offer, to have positive candidate experience. And that's just really the beginning. As I said, we look at numerical data, positive experience percentages, and to drill down and understand what it is that can be improved and how we can go about it. So that's enough of my voice for a bit, and I'll pass you back over to Elaine.
Thanks so much, Pete. Yeah, so this last section is that we've gone through, okay, why does candidate experience matter? Why, and also what does the candidate want? And then Pete has gone through, okay, how do we set up a structure that measures success? What does good look like? But obviously a big part of that is training recruiters, informing them of all this great stuff and really providing that ongoing resources. So a couple of areas. So obviously it goes without saying, training. It's an integral part. There is dedicated experience training for a recruiter, for a coordinator. It's obviously part of the onboarding process. So if you're new into the business, 100%, but it's once a year. If you've been at Google as a recruiter for 10 years, you still have to take this training as a refresher. We bring expert facilitators in as well. Obviously, we have what we call internals, these real kind of champs who are so good at this type of thing. But we also keep looking externally as well. What is happening in the market that we're operating in? Can we learn from those facilitators and that particular training? So really, it's ongoing, an ongoing exercise that we look at from a training perspective. Automation. We know there is a lot of work involved. If you have multiple, live roles on, that leads to multiple candidates. And if we go through, I'll do as I say. I will update you on Friday, or expect me to get in touch with you within 7 to 14 days. There's a lot of manual work involved. So we try to automate that as much as possible, make it as efficient. Remove any duplicatory manual tasks where possible. We have a lot of email templates, and we have some tools. Again, very lucky that we have great tech on our hands to be able to automate this. It not only creates consistency, in terms of each recruiter saying the same thing, we're coming together as one Google, but it just makes it so easy. Just hit a couple of clicks and boom, an email has gone out. And then auto reminders like schedule sends, or there's an email in our calendar, FYI, you haven't, spoken to this candidate in 14 days, should you reach out? So we try to make it as easy as possible where we can. Team of experts. So I think Pete mentioned as well, but we have candidate experience champions. These are recruiters who have consistently high experience feedback from those surveys that they get. They're consistently performing highly. So obviously they're doing something right. So we go to them for advice. They're a point of reference. How can they help us in difficult situations? But not only that, they also work together as a project group to look at those anonymous surveys and see, can we spot trends? What happens in Q1 happens is different from the results that we got in Q4. Why was that? And also looking, let's corrective action. We see there's a trend not going well. Let's, where can we spot that we can make some adjustments so we can go back on trend. So really relying on those team of experts. That's kind of from the recruitment point of view. But as Pete mentioned, there is teams of touch points that are, that a candidate will have to go through. So it's also really important for us at Google that we also train those on candidate experience. So interviewers. It's a huge. We have invested a lot of time in cultivating in-depth interview training. We really want to develop emotional intelligence for interviewers. So there's a 2-part interactive training. It's mandatory. You have to be at Google at least 6 months before you can even take this training. Even if you're, a VP or a director coming in and you've 20 years of interviewing experience, we still require you to do this training. It is different. We just want to make sure that there's consistency and we're unified in our approach to candidate experience. And then it's also part of interviewer selection. We can see that feedback from candidates and how the interview went. And we can kind of keep track of that, what we call feedback on feedback. And then we can also, part of interviewer selection. We're very lucky in that being a interviewer is a part of Google culture and they really want to contribute that. But if they are not a good interviewer, we'll know, and we can say, unfortunately, we prefer you not to interview at this time. We recommend you do more training, more refreshers to kind of come up to the bar that we set ourselves up for. So again, it's really, really important. Internal champions, this is different from the other champions. These are actually business, Googlers, what we call, people who work at Google. And there is a new program that we have where we're connecting that business with the candidates. They're not interviewing them. It's not about a particular role. It's not about a particular process. Just they want to learn more about, maybe, working from home, flexibility, being a parent at Google, or career trajectory, or how does culture and collaboration work. It's a very, very competitive market. We're competing for talent, and so, but we know our competitive advantage is the people that work for us. So being able to connect the external candidates with these great internal advocates, we have seen an increase in offer accepts, which is really good. And then innovate. I think it goes without saying, we consistently analyze our process, but also run these global surveys on candidate experience. What happened, what's relevant, a couple of years ago, it's constantly evolving. The next generation of candidates, we're constantly looking at what does the future of recruitment look like. The next generation of candidates have grown up with YouTube, have grown up with TikTok or Snapchat and Instagram. How will that affect the candidate experience and the way that they apply and go through the process? So we're looking at things like machine learning, artificial intelligence, as Pete mentioned, like video resumes, video submissions. We do a lot of gamification as well, which is really, really interesting topic for us. For example, on the tech side of the house, we kind of run, let's say, adverts or little games on the major tech websites like Stack Overflow, etc. It's kind of, again, it's a game, but if we see a software engineer who happens to pass that game, we say, congratulations, you have passed the first screening of Google's technical interviews. We would like to invite you to a face-to-face interview. Again, just to make difference, keep up to date. COVID-19 definitely brought a lot of challenges as well with us for candidate experience and kind of in the innovation side of the house. We did a lot of virtual interviews anyway, but now, we've had to move to 100% virtual interviews. That means we're making offers to people who have not been to the office, have not met someone face to face. And that has definitely an impacted experience. So we have put additional measures in place, additional trainings, additional preparations for both the interviewers, recruiters, and candidates as well. And then also we've, how can we connect new hires together as well? So, as it goes without saying, but the experience doesn't kind of stop when we've hired someone. It's about, I've met an offer, but you're starting in 2 or 3 months. And in a COVID world where, you can't meet someone for lunch or coffee before you start, how do we connect those people together virtually as well? So again, a lot of just different things that we're thinking about when it comes to innovation. I will stop there because we are at the end of the presentation. And so, yeah, I would welcome any questions.
Elaine, thank you very much. That's really cool. Peter, thank you very much. Luckily, we've got some questions, so you won't have to put up with mine. Although if we still got some time, I do have a question. We'll have that in the end. Caroline's asked 2 questions. Let's go to Caroline first. First and foremost, how do you consider cultural fit during the interview process?
Great question. Pete, I'm happy to take this one. Pete literally just mentioned culture fit is a tricky one. But we look more like a cultural contribution. It's not just about, okay, do they go same school as me, same background? You know, I know they work for that company, that therefore I know they'll be a good fit. We're looking at, okay, what is a gap in skills that we have? And can this person fit that? So it's around competencies rather than culture fit. You know, we want people, yes, collaboration is huge and that comes with a part of culture, but we make our hiring decisions based on, can they do the job? Do they, you know, good for Google's future rather than, I like them, you know, they get along with the team. So it is a tricky one because, you know, they do have to get along with the team and collaborate, not just with us, but our external partners. But we value that difference of experience over that. Yeah.
Cool.
Just add slightly to the end. Adam Grant is the chap I was trying to remember earlier. I would encourage everyone to look at his culture fit, reculture ad video on YouTube. It is something that we use when we're discussing, you know, the topic internally, and it highlights everything that Elaine said there. But yeah, see the Adam Grant video. That would be really interesting on that topic.
Because Caroline's asked several questions, I think Caroline's next question: how do you connect the external candidates with internal employees to actually get them to speak directly, or do they do something different?
Sorry, what was the question?
How do you connect the external candidates with internal employees?
So yeah. I could jump on that one because I'm part of the champions group. So it is exactly that. So it is the connection. So if someone's coming through in the hiring process at the moment, or even they've been contacted by us through LinkedIn, something like that, they have specific questions, and it's more about making sure that these questions aren't necessarily discussed with people that are impacting the hiring process or that are related within the team. So it can bring that completely out. And we do exactly that. We set them up on a phone call or a video call where they can just have that anonymity, to have that discussion and really just help them come to those answers. So yeah, it's just a connection made through video or phone call.
Cool. Gemma's asked a question about how you train a less experienced recruiter. How do you increase their capability? What's your strategy? How do you go about that?
Yeah, so I think, as I mentioned, we have dedicated trainings. If they're less experienced, then we would definitely, you know, work with, as an experienced champion team, work with their manager, and kind of manage those trends, making sure they have a buddy, someone who's there beside them if they have any experience. Do
you think scale helps a little bit with Google? The fact you've got, you know, reasonable sized team, I guess it's more challenging if you're in a small team.
I agree, yeah, and I know we definitely were very lucky to have a lot of resources and teams around us to be able to do that. But I think it's been able to set the expectations. What does good look like? How are we going to keep reviewing it, and try and, you know, stop those trends? You know, people, you know, we're human. Some weeks it's not a good experience because something happens. It's about spotting that and rectifying as soon as possible, and just laying out the expectations for everybody. But we're lucky we have trainings and, as I say, great managers, and it's part of our when we look at, you know, as a recruiter, am I doing a good job? Candidate experience is part of that. Yeah.
Cool. I'm going to actually ask 2 questions in one go. You probably see the questions as well. So Gemma's asking about video applications from across Europe and relationship to GDPR. Obviously saying it's a great idea, but do you know the legalities of that? I've probably got my own opinion. But we've also got a question around around bias and what do you feel about removing names and photos from a CV, etc. So I can't say that word, make them less obvious. That long word that we can't say on video. What's your opinion, I guess, from a sort of Google perspective? What are you doing?
Yeah, I mean, Pete, I could do GDPR if you want to do the bias.
Yeah.
So it's something that we're piloting. And again, very lucky we have a specialist legal team who's advising us on that. It's really a matter of consent. If they allow us, you know, if they upload their video, obviously it'll have personal details on there. we'll keep it on file for what, 2 or 3 years, and they'll be automatically deleted. They can, you know, provide some anonymity as well. So it's really, we're piloting it. It's not yet fully part of our hiring
Effectively, you're
process.
treating it the same as any other bit of data that you'd have, that
Completely.
which is confidential and private.
Completely,
So.
completely,
Yeah.
completely. Yeah, and only sharing it with the hiring decision makers. Completely. Yeah.
And then on the point of biases, I actually completely agree with this, and I think more for it. We should be taking names and photos out where possible. I know we've piloted with the hiring managers that I've worked with in trust and safety, where we've all sat down and we've just completely anonymized the CV, and then you have a very objective, so you don't see the companies that they worked at, or you don't see the name, the photo, or anything, any sort of personal data, and you just see the roles, responsibilities, and we look at that and how it can go through. So it's something that is definitely there to be scaled a lot more and piloted through, and it's something that we're looking at a lot more at the moment. And I think it's a great idea to do, and I think more for it.
Cool. We've got a couple of questions from Steve Usher, and again, I'm going to try and lump those into one, if that makes sense, and you get to talk. Do you link your KPIs, your internal measurements, your KPIs, to the candidate survey outcomes, or are they independent? So, e.g., you know, surveys driving insights for improvement, and then setting internal standards separately for people to deliver against. And I guess related to that, how do people who perhaps aren't using surveys, perhaps how would they go about starting to do that with candidates? Good questions from Steve.
Yeah, so to answer the first question is yes, 100%. We have, say, goals and targets. 90% of every candidate that we interact with, we hope they have a positive experience. That's kind of our goal. So yes, and that completely is to every single recruiter, no matter where you are in the world, no matter what role, it's a standardized approach. But we do look at the comments as well. That's kind of a nice target, but then we look at the comments to see, was it something in the recruiter's control? You know, it should have been, you know, they maybe disadvantage or, you know, give a bad rating overall the experience rather than just on the recruiter. I'm sorry, what was the second part of the question?
You obviously use candidate surveys. It can be quite difficult to get feedback. How would you go about starting if you're not using them before? What's the sort of good, you know, top tips?
Yeah, it's a great question. If you don't have that kind of tech around you, I mean, but you know, Google Forms is a really, really simple, easy way to track all that. Or as part of your rejection calls or as part of your offer calls, having verbally, you know, asking a couple of questions. Listen, we'd love to get your thoughts on how we could have improved, you know, any feedback that you have for us. So it can be as simple or as complicated as you want, but I think just getting the habit of collecting that data and which start of the process you want to do that is a great start. And there's a lot of simple tools out there to do that or verbally. Yeah.
Just on that as well, to build on that, I know Google Forms, Google Product, of course, we talk about it. It is something that we use on different internal surveys if we're trying to get feedback from managers, and we can anonymize it. So again, if you're looking at just building that experience, you can have a block, you know, where you're looking at 1 to 5 how people are. You have the written comment section where they can write what they think and can be anonymized, and that's a great way you can start building that out and tracking.
Cool. Well, we're going to wrap. We've got 3 more questions, and then we're going to wrap up. So I'll just do them in order. Jake has asked, does your interview training differ from different seniorities? So, for example, you've got a manager versus a director. How do you navigate that? Is it all the same for everybody?
In short, it's the same for everyone.
Okay. That's easy.
Yeah, everyone comes into the same. So yeah, I do the training as well. So everyone comes into the same training. They all go through the same experience. I do the same role plays and such, and it's the same content for them all.
Cool. I'm going to pick up Chris's question, then we're going to finish off with you, Corinna. So Chris has asked, how do you manage the candidate experience if a hiring manager is slow? We've all been there where we've done something, we've found the candidate, we think everything's wonderful, and then the manager ghosts us for a little bit. How do you chase those managers, or have you got a robust process that inflicts some sort of pain on them? No,
unfortunately not. We experience very, very slow hiring managers as well. It's from my point of view, it's 2 ways. It's about letting the candidate going, I'm chasing, I'm trying my best on your behalf. Maybe provide a explanation. It's they're out of office, or I know it's a busy end of quarter, but you know, again, but it's about, even if you have no update, you're regularly emailing them. But then also you're following up the hiring and going, we are not providing the best positive candidate experience. This may, you know, reflect if they don't, you know, withdraw from the process, they don't accept our offer. Like, we will, this is feedback we can give to your manager, you know, stuff like that. So it's understanding and being realistic, but pushing where we can. Yeah. Perfect.
And Corinna has got a wider question, I guess, which we'll finish off on today. What are your thoughts on candidate pools post-January, when we'll have to apply for visas for European candidates? Will you open up roles to everyone? I guess that's a big old question for everybody to think about in the UK.
I mean, I think we're, again, I feel, yes, our processes won't change. We have a very strong immigration, and we move people all over the world, both internally and externally. So maybe that's just, you know, in our position of privilege, but nothing will change from our point of view. We will not restrict, we will not base hiring decisions based on where they're coming from, their nationality, where they're going to. Yeah, it won't affect us.
No, and I think that's probably one of the things that larger organisations, you know, pan-global organisations like yourself, continually move around. For some UK-based organisations, it is going to be a challenge, isn't it? There's going to be some real extra paperwork, extra process, extra bureaucracy that get in the way there. Guys, I want to thank you so much, Elaine and Peter from Google. You've been wonderful. You've answered, given us lots of information about your own take on candidate experience. There's some stuff there I think that people will be able to learn from. Remember.